Donald Trump has ordered his Department of Justice to go dark on his dark past. He thinks as he invades Venezuela, murders people with his SS, his ICE Gestapo in Minneapolis, terrorizing communities across the country, that we, the people, are going to forget that he and the MAGA Republicans are covering up a child sex trafficking ring. We're not forgetting that the Trump regime is covering up the Epstein files. It's now been 2 weeks since the Trump regime has not even addressed the production of documents. December 19th was the deadline under the Epstein Transparency Act for them to produce all responsive documents, meaning everything in the Epstein files, the Ghislaine files, the co-conspirator files, and they only produced about 1%. There are reports that there are as many as 5 to 10 million documents, about 10.2 pages on average per document. So we could be talking about 50 million pages when they've only turned over about 12,000 documents, or 125,000 pages. And they think that we're going to just say, nothing to see here. And we know they're not turning over the key records. And in a recent court filing that they thought that we wouldn't notice, before federal Judge Engelmeyer, who's overseeing the Ghislaine Maxwell case, the Trump regime said, hey, Judge, we may have missed the Epstein Transparency Act deadline, but we're working really hard. There was a vacation that had to take place. There was Christmas, and then there was New Year's, and it's really hard for us to go through all of these records. They said that they have hundreds of attorneys at the Southern District of New York Federal Prosecutorial Office and FBI agents, and also hundreds of other agents across the DOJ and other offices, including Maine Justice, working on this document production, but it's very hard for them to go through all of these records. They put that in a filing, like a week and a half ago, thinking we weren't going to notice. And then Ro Khanna, Democratic Congress member, and Thomas Massie, Republican Congress member, who were joining forces to put forward the discharge petition, which eventually became the Epstein Transparency Act. They then filed an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief, with Judge Engelmeyer requesting that a special master or an independent monitor be appointed because the DOJ cannot be trusted because they've already violated the Epstein Transparency Act, a criminal violation. The DOJ is a racketeering operation, a enterprise of covering up child sex trafficking. That's what the DOJ has been turned into. So of course they can't be trusted when they're the perpetrators of a RICO enterprise cover-up of child sex trafficking. Now, let's just break down everything that took place, including the fact that after December 19th, 15 days thereafter, under the Epstein Transparency Act, the Trump regime was required to put forward a report that explained their document review, who was working on it, the redactions that were made. And guess what? The Trump regime did not even submit the report. That is their disdain for the law, their maliciousness in covering up a child sex trafficking ring. So they haven't even done anything in 2 weeks other than file this request for an extension on what it promised Judge Engelmeyer they were going to do. And I liked that Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, even though they're not parties to the Ghislaine case, they wanted to intervene and said, Judge, we don't trust them. Appoint an independent monitor, appoint a special master. So let me just show you some red flags here as well. And you know, the MeidasTouch Network, from day one, we've been on top of this, and I've been saying, no way there's less than 5-10 million documents in the Epstein files. And I know this because I used to work on large document production cases as a litigator. I handled massive cases where I was appointed as an attorney for a receiver and the SEC when they were prosecuting big Ponzi scheme cases out in California. We dealt with 3, 5, 10 terabytes of documents, enough to fill 3 to 5 towers, 80 stories tall if you were to line up all of the paperwork. And look, this Epstein file should have billions of dollars in transactions because there was a $1 billion money laundering scheme going parallel with the sex trafficking by these co-conspirators, by these billionaires, by these predators. And so just the financials alone should be in the millions and millions of records based on how I've dealt with cases, prosecuting cases like this as a civil litigator. So the New York Times, you may recall, previously reported that there were 5.2 million pages of Epstein files that were missing. And it's important that we use the right definition, pages or documents, because in the Trump regime's filing before Judge Engelmeyer on January 5th, 2026, they write that only 12,285 documents have been released, which they say equals 125,575 pages, approximately 10.22 pages per document, a document with multiple pages. So when they go on to say in their status report, is what they're calling it, to Judge Engelmeyer, that there are more than 2 million documents that are still in a review phase. Do 2 million times 10.22, and you'll see there's like 20 million, 22 million pages that are outstanding based on what they're saying, and I still believe it's much more than that. And so I ask as well, then what were you doing in February and March, where based on the great reporting of Jason Leopold from Bloomberg and his FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act request, we know that there were 1,000 DOJ lawyers and FBI agents doing document review and billing tens of thousands of hours in overtime then. And Pam Bondi said that the Epstein files were on her desk in February. So what were you doing between February and right now? What were you doing? It would take me about 30 to 45 days with a team of 5 lawyers to go through documents that are 5 to 10 times the amount that is listed in this DOJ filing. I've done it before. I've done it without some of the modern doc review technology that didn't exist when I was doing it in the 2012s, 2013s, 2014s, and 2015s. So this is a manageable task with 5 lawyers, not 125 lawyers. And any corporate lawyer or litigator who deals with big document productions knows exactly what I'm saying is accurate. You telling me there's a team of 125 lawyers doing a doc review and you can't get it done in a few days? Don't believe it. Don't buy it, because that is impossible. That is the most massive team to do a document review. If it's really only 22 million documents, that is actually not a lot of documents, especially where the protocol is limited redactions, just the name of the victims. That's the protocol. There should be nothing else that we're even dealing with. So then Democratic Congressmember Ro Khanna and Republican Congressmember Thomas Massie sent this letter on January 8th to Judge Engelmeyer, and they say the DOJ cannot be trusted to make mandatory disclosures under the Transparency Act. And they say, while we believe that criminal violations have taken place, the most urgent need is to release the documents. They go on to request as amicus curiae, meaning friends of the court, meaning that they're giving guidance. They're not parties, so they can't intervene in the case, but they're just making a suggestion that there be an independent monitor or a special master appointed to help with this document review and make it an independent process because the DOJ can't be trusted. We're all waiting on Judge Engelmeyer's ruling.
If you're like me, instead of learning to skateboard, you wish you were learning to write code. Instead of scraping through college, you wish you bought Bitcoin at less than a cent or secured a few Nvidia shares before they boomed. We might be the FOMO generation, but don't miss out on protecting your future. For around the same price per month as one of your streaming services, you can break our generational cycle and secure your and your family's future by finding life insurance at SelectQuote.com. If you're new to life insurance, you're not alone. Thankfully, I found SelectQuote. For over 40 years, SelectQuote has helped more than 2 million Americans understand their options and get the coverage they need. over $700 billion in coverage and counting. As a broker, their mission is simple: to find you the right insurance policy at the best price. SelectQuote takes the guesswork out of finding the right life insurance policy. You don't have to sort through dozens of confusing options on your own. Instead, one of their licensed agents will find the right policy at the right price for you, comparing plans from trusted, top-rated insurance companies to find a policy that fits your health, your lifestyle, and your budget. And they work for you for free. You'll be covered faster than you think. SelectQuote works with providers who offer same-day coverage up to $2 million worth with no medical exam required. And you're not out of luck if you have pre-existing health conditions, because SelectQuote partners with companies that offer policies for people with conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, or heart disease. SelectQuote makes life insurance simple, even if this is your first time thinking about it. Head to SelectQuote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Life insurance is never cheaper than it is today. Get the right life insurance for you for less and save more than 50% at SelectQuote.com/Meidas. Save more than 50% on term life insurance at SelectQuote.com/Meidas today to get started. That's SelectQuote.com/Meidas.
But the Trump regime has gone dark. They have not produced the report that was required. They've not produced any additional records. The government is covering up a child sex trafficking ring. What is more vile? What is more disgusting? What is more pathetic? What is more predatorial than that behavior as they go around and send their SS, their ICE Gestapo, their Trump paramilitary, these untrained thugs who go around harassing, terrorizing, and killing us? Killing the American people, putting people into concentration camps if their skin color is darker. This is what the Trump regime is doing while covering up a child sex trafficking ring. So Ro Khanna was on Lawrence O'Donnell and he talked about the special master request. Play this clip.
So the special master request by a judge, procedurally, this is a kind of a request that's made all the time in various forms of litigation. And judges usually make it on the decision on the basis of, is there any other way for this to be handled fairly? And if not, we may need a special master. So this could be the key that unlocks this lock.
You're absolutely right, Lawrence. Judge Engelmeyer has been very thoughtful and deliberate about his rulings. He has cited the Epstein Transparency Act, saying the DOJ has an obligation to release the documents. And Pam Bondi has been communicating with the judge, saying we still have 2 million documents to release. 2/3 of the attorneys in the Southern District of New York are working on this right now. And so what we're saying is, Judge Engelmeyer, appoint a special master so that we know that we're getting the information that the law requires. The DOJ has not been providing that. They have been engaged in excessive redactions. Why don't you ensure that the law is being followed?
And a special master like that really reports to the judge. The judge can check in on the special master. How many documents now? How's the progress going? They schedule regular meetings in court with those kinds of special masters, don't they?
Absolutely. And it's a common practice when you have millions of documents involved. When you literally have 2/3 of our lawyers in the Southern District of New York, one of the most important U.S. Attorney's Office working on this, when the country is looking at what should happen, what this says is the special master will look at the law, the plain reading of the law, and will determine what should come out and what should be protected. Frankly, the DOJ should welcome this, have an independent person. We're not saying Massey or I should do it. We're not saying the survivor's lawyer should do it. We're just saying have a judge appoint an independent person to interpret the statute and have a release of these documents.
And this is such an interesting angle on this, because normally between the executive branch and the legislative branch, when there's an issue of this sort, it gets worked out, and it gets worked out in good faith. And the executive branch might say, well, look, this is taking us longer than we thought. They come over, they explain why, they show you why. You go, okay. But since this is so contentious and they are obviously so untrustworthy, this is what has forced you to court.
It's unfortunate. We tried to extend the benefit of the doubt. Thomas Massey and I requested meetings with the Department of Justice. We requested with Bradley Edwards, who was the lawyer for the survivors, saying at least consult the survivors. As you remember, they didn't even call the survivors or the survivors' lawyers on the first release. We didn't criticize them until that first release. But now, weeks after the deadline, they have not explained the redactions. By their own admission, they have millions of documents. And our interest is not to score points against Pam Bondi. Our interest is the survivors. We just want these documents released, especially the 302 statements where the survivors name the other rich and powerful men who were involved in the rapes and in the abuse. And I have extraordinary confidence in Judge Engelmayer. His decisions have been very thoughtful, and I believe he would appoint a person of integrity to oversee this process.
And that would be a huge breakthrough. Congressman Ro Khanna, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thomas Massie was on CNN. Here's what he had to say.
Republican Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky joins me now. He and Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna of California are asking for this special master. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. So you don't trust the Justice Department to comply with the law. Why not?
Well, it's not a matter of opinion now. They're not in compliance with the law. They've missed two deadlines. The first was a 30-day deadline to release material to the public, and the second was a 15-day deadline to release some information to Congress. But what I'm concerned about is not the volume of material that they haven't released. It's specific documents they haven't given us where we know there are individuals who will be named. They're withholding those documents. Also, we believe they're over-redacting the files in contravention of the law, the letter of the law.
More from Thomas Massie right here.
Yeah, I vote 91% of the time with the party, but when they're covering up for pedophiles or starting a new war or doing regime change or bankrupting the country, and that 9%, Jake, I'm not with my party. It definitely hurts me to campaign with the president against me. I've got a Republican primary. It's going to be hotly contested. And that's why, Jake, you don't see other members of the Republican Party sticking their necks out. They're afraid of the president. Ironically, though, after that tweet, I raised $80,000 in people who want to see somebody up here who will speak their mind and speak for their constituents instead of just for their party. And by the way, most of those donors are Trump supporters. They just want to see a Republican who will exhibit some independent thought.
Here's what Democratic Congressmember Robert Garcia, who is the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, had to say. Play this clip.
Hey, it's Congressman Robert Garcia. We have huge news as relates to our Epstein investigation. Now, for months, we have been trying to ensure that we subpoena Les Wexner and the two heads of the Epstein estate, who are Jeffrey Epstein's former lawyer and accountant. Les Wexner is a billionaire who was deeply tied with Jeffrey Epstein and his circle. In fact, he was Jeffrey Epstein's lone billionaire benefactor for a large period of time. He also used to run Victoria's Secret, was a big CEO. We know that there are survivors that have actually called out Mr. Wexner multiple times, and they believe he is critical to this investigation. In addition, we have Darren Indyke and Richard Kahn, who are the two heads of the Epstein estate. Now, as Epstein's lawyer and accountant, almost more than anyone, they have important information about our investigation, particularly around where the money came in and out of Epstein.
And Jim McGovern, the Democratic ranking member on the Rules Committee, one of the things that he said is, look, we need to also remember that Trump is out there helping his billionaire friends on the Epstein files while ripping away healthcare and screwing over the American people. Let's play this clip right here.
And I don't want to be lectured about, wealthy people in this country, because the Republicans, have done everything they can to help those who are well off get more, and those who are struggling get less. We saw the big, beautiful bill. Tax cuts that included tax cuts for multimillionaires and multi-billionaires. I mean, giveaways to billionaires, giveaways to big ag, to big tech, big oil. And we see cuts to programs that help average people in this country just to get by. By the way, in their big ugly bill, $1 trillion cut to Medicaid. They're cutting monies for SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. That's basically to help people put food on the table. And by the way, increasingly a majority of the people who are on SNAP are working families, and they're cutting that at the same time that groceries are going up. But if you're a billionaire, don't worry about it. Don't worry. We're fighting a war over oil right now because we want to make sure big oil that invested so heavily in the last campaign gets their payback. But the bottom line is, when it comes to people who are well off, well connected, and have lots of money, they're doing fine. Everybody else is getting screwed. And if you ask the average person on the street about what they think of Donald Trump's economy, I'll tell you what they'll say. They'll say it sucks.
Powerful words indeed. We'll keep you posted every step of the way here, but I wanted to show you, and I want to make it clear to you that we are not forgetting about the Epstein files. And while Trump may try to distract and deflect, here at the MeidasTouch Network, we focus on it. So make sure you're subscribed. You may think you're subscribed to this YouTube channel, but you might not actually be subscribed. So double check, hit subscribe, help us get to 6 million. We appreciate you so much, and have a wonderful day.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.